yeah, let's talk about product tours. So the main reason that we want to talk about product tours is because they're such a great tool to get newly signed up users to adopt your product. But okay, I see chat is disabled. Let's fix that. Okay. In any case, yeah. Okay. Looks like chat should work now. Okay. We'll we'll do it again. We'll start again here. And cool. So the ultimate guide to product tours, users don't skip. And the product tours are a great tool. That's where we're at. Product tours are a great tool for onboarding users and to make sure they understand your product. But a lot of the time, if you signed up for a SaaS product, in the past couple of years, you've probably seen a tour that's just like 20 steps. You're just like, I don't care about all these crazy settings yet. So we want to walk you through how to create great product tours that people actually care about and that actually help people. And we're going to walk through a bunch of stuff today, as you see here, jam-packed with examples and stuff. So what we're going to talk about first is the principles of what makes good UX elements in this space. And then we're also going to talk about why most product tours suck, how to do them better, and then be very, very practical about how to sort of start, middle, end a product tour. Cool. So let's start with a sort of metaphor. And you might think, what is this Lego thing? Lego box, Lego instruction manual. What does any of this have to do with a product tour, right? And the reason is that as product people, it's very easy to confuse marketing and product tours are product. So this might sound obvious, but this box succeeds if 150 other things are on the shelf, and this stands out and people choose this one thing because it calls so much attention to itself. This is, once you have the thing, this doesn't need to call attention to itself. And basically, if it gets out of the way, that's exactly what it should do. So if this helps you build the Lego set, put it on your shelf as a collectible, or your kids play with it, or whatever the case may be, and you never use the manual again, it did its job perfectly. And that's exactly what we want to have with product tours. We want something that gets out of the way and helps users engage with the thing and get out of it what they want to get out of it. And cool. So that's sort of the metaphor. And just don't try to build something that like calls attention to itself. Yes, we're super proud of all the things we build, all the features we have, but the ultimate case is to create value for users, not to be flashy about what we're trying to build, what we've built, right? Okay, so that's just a starting metaphor. And from that, we've sort of derived 4 principles that we've seen with customers work all over and over again. And those principles are called SONA. And that's the framework, SONA. I'm going to walk you through them right now. The examples here are a bit more disparate than the examples here, because these are super product specific. Others are a little bit less. But yeah. So the SONA, the S in SONA stands for single use. That means a nudge, which is what we call the little windows in your product, right? What we call in the command bar. It's good if it's as specific as possible, and preferably so specific it couldn't be used anywhere else. An example for that is this website, Convertio, rate PNG to WebP quality. Okay, what does that mean? Am I reviewing the output? Am I reviewing the product, the website? I have no idea. So this is not single use. This could literally be put anywhere in their product, and it would kind of sort of make sense, but also not really. Okay, let's talk about a good example of this. I recently logged into PayPal, and this is very specifically in the PayPal dashboard. The PayPal homepage helps me accomplish my task for my business. Strongly disagree to strongly agree. Super specific to where I'm at, and this couldn't be used anywhere else. Great example. This is also how product tours should work. Now, let's talk about the next one, on time. So this is basically the idea that the more on time an element of user assistance, any UX element is, the more likely it's going to be relevant to a user. So this is one. I signed up for a Crash Typeform account recently. I've gone through a lot of product tours, by the way, to create this. But anyways, yeah. So I went through sort of a short product tour, but then I started my own Typeform as the first Typeform here. And what was very cool is it showed me the basic features, but then it just kept showing me features. And one of them was create different endings. I'm like, I mean, I have not edited a single thing here. It's not particularly useful for me here to know how to create an ending. So there was a contextual clue that I was trying to end the survey. That's when this should have been surfaced. Now, a good example of this on-time idea is Instacart saying, oh, being very specific. You took a break. Good to see you again. 4 reasons why you might have. That's a great way of being very timely with what you're offering. Okay, minimal. This is perhaps the craziest example in this whole thing. Is you want product tours? It's like just like the instruction manual. You want the product tour to be as short as possible to get people to play with the Lego set, to use your product. And if I'm faced with 29 steps that are just the basics, I'm just like, am I really going to do all of this? Probably not. So what this should be, and this is not bad content if you actually click into these things, but what this should be is like, okay, maybe these 5 things when you first sign up, and then the first time you try to create a project, that's when you give you those 3 things. So that they, instead of being like, hey, here's everything you could learn about our product, have fun, giving it to people at the right time, and being as small as possible with the things that you offer. Cool. So let's talk about a good example of this. This is Slack, super specific to just the redesign. So the redesign is controversial, whatever, but this is incredibly specific to just the redesign and doesn't try to do more. It's very minimal. It's as small as possible. They just show you what's changed, get out of there. Good. Okay. Now, let's talk about the last one, which is add one person. And that basically means you want to bat signal as much and personalize as much as possible. And a negative example here is this app where I signed up and I have not even created my workspace. It is impossible that I've ever done anything in this app. And yet they're giving me this pop-up about desktop app and fall symphony theme. And I'm just like, especially themes which are so sort of inconsequential to the core product experience. This does not matter at a point where I've never, ever used your product. So make sure, and it's very clear that this is not personalized. This is just like blasted to all users who ever sign, right? Whereas HubSpot does the opposite, right? Which of these sounds like you? I'm new to HubSpot, but I've used the CRM before. We've applied this template. And then they tell you deal stages. And if you click something else, they don't tell you about deal. They assume, okay, maybe you don't know about deal stages yet. Or if you click the option of, I know my way around HubSpot, then maybe they don't tell you about deal stages, but they get straight to very deep customization. So that's a very good example of the add one person principle. Okay, so that's our SOMA framework. And let's now dive deeper and talk about product tours. And why do so many product tours just suck, right? Why are they such bad experiences? And these are things which, if you do them wrong, they're sort of multiplied by 0. You can do a lot of things right, but if you do any of these, it's probably going to nullify most of that. So putting product updates first is one. And you've probably seen this when you sign up to any SaaS app and you're immediately bombarded. You see, similar to the previous one, set up your first campaign. I've never set up anything, but yet I get this pop-up with like the latest product updates. It's the season for templates. Okay, I don't even know where I use a template in this product. New enhancement to the app editor. I don't care about, I've literally never used this editor. And instead, what you would want to do is like suppress experiences like this for a product tour. Because if your product tour ends up competing with a bunch of other things, this is what happens. So once the interface is overloaded, you end up with just users being confused. And there's, we always say there's no excuse for having more than one pop-up on the screen, right? So we have adjust settings. This is sort of product tour thing. This is product announcement. One more product announcement. So you're just overwhelmed. nobody's going to interact with this except to like get all these pop-ups out of there as quickly as possible to actually use the thing. Okay. And then too long, I always use this metaphor of imagine somebody invites you over to dinner and they show you around you're at their house for the first time. They show you around the living room, the kitchen, whatever. And you're just like, okay, I'd be ready to eat dinner now. But they're like, you know what? No, actually, you need to see the kids' bedrooms and the utility closet in the basement and the freezer that we have out in the garage. It's just like, no, like what matters for now is that I want to eat dinner. I want to see the kitchen, the living room. That's it. So don't make your product tours too long, right? And that's what a lot of companies actually do when they sort of have these 20, 30-step product tours that showcase obscure theme features, obscure enterprise single sign-on stuff that you're just like, you just don't care if you're a new user who just signed up on like a product-led motion, right? So let's talk about what we see our customers do super well and what we've seen work over and over again. And one is surfacing these things on intent when users actually want to be served a product tour. And we'll talk more about this later in the sort of how to start a product tour thing. But but this is a software called Remnode. So this is part of a product tour. So create a cart. So this is the next step. And if I click on this, then a product tour pops up. So this is a very nice way of doing this. Obviously, the X also implies you can just get rid of this. So it's not like, hey, here's 20 steps. It's like, hey, click this, done. And if you don't, that's okay. So they're offering it to you without forcing it on you. And that has users are not annoyed by this because it's just not an annoying UI element. B, what it does very well is it leads to more people completing the tour because people actually chose to click the tour. Okay. The other one is making it interactive. So a lot of product tours are sort of like, hey, here's what you can do, navigate to this, this, and that. And there's sort of glorified documentation, whereas this is very specific. For example, this is from Notion and create a new task. So once you click that, get the next one, get the next one, get the next one. That's very, very good because people actually do the thing and you're showing them not telling, if you ever heard that writing advice. So you make them do the thing, and that way they become more familiar and the tour is a better experience overall, right? Okay, let's put those principles into practice. First, how to start a product tour. And the first one is showing a benefit. And one of the problems with many product tours is that they sort of are pitched to the user by just saying, hey, it looks like you're new around here. Why not take a tour, right? And you're just giving them no incentive. I mean, like, why should I care about a product tour why should I care about just a product tour? That's not enticing. What is enticing is getting the benefit out of the product. So this is one from Frank, right? Design, publish beautiful sites in minutes. Okay, like if I want to build a website or if I am a designer, this is something that makes sense to me, right? So another one is allowing opt-out and making it optional. So this is Algolia, let's go. No thanks, I'll browse on my own. This is Slack. You saw this example before. I'll explore on my own. This is a very good example. Which shows that you don't have to force this on users. And this leads to two things. Again, people are way more likely to actually finish the tour and become more engaged. And B, there's also people who have very legitimate reasons to not take the tour. Let's just say somebody switches jobs and they use Algolia. They used Algolia before. They're incredibly familiar with every single enterprise feature that you could imagine. And they switch jobs and they now have an account with a new company. There's no reason for them to take a tour. They're incredibly familiar. So there's perfectly good reasons for them to not take these tours. Now, one final thing that we always say is, to avoid that sort of like Lego box mistake, to turning it into marketing, is to offer more info. So we want to comply with the minimal principle we outlined initially. And the best way we can do that is by not forcing a ton of different things in there, but by offering more info that maybe is optional. And what you see here is, learn more, and that takes you to a blog article that's sort of created for marketing. So if there are marketing assets, then you can link to them with like a little learn more thing, or if there's documentation, if you're a dev tool or stuff like that, which allows you to have all the information you want to share, but without making, some giant thing that nobody's going to read, right? Okay, cool. So how to start a product tour, we went over that. And now let's make sure how we create nudges that keep users engaged. And nudges, just for context, I mentioned this a little bit on the outset, but we call all of these things nudges. We just think it's a friendlier way of stating what these little in product windows are, and they're not sort of forceful. They're just nudging the user to do this thing. And one thing is adding visuals. So visuals, GIFs, videos, pictures, whatever the case may be. They evoke more of what you might want and what you want the user to do, or what the benefit is. And B, another super nice thing that they do is they illustrate different motions, especially if there's complicated UI patterns. They're more difficult than just clicking a single button, which might be drag and dropping a file somewhere. If you have a GIF, you can show people precisely where to drop the file and where they can drop the file. And that makes it easier for users to understand. The next one, indicate progress. So this is in line with the keep it short principle. And we want to make sure the users know that these are short. If it said 1 out of 35, it would be like, okay, I'm not doing this. But if it said nothing, there's the chance that it is 1 out of 35. So you might also not do it because you've just been burned by other product tours that are 35 steps. So, and if you are at the point where you need to hide how long your product tour is, that's also a bad sign. So we have this example from Notion. It's like docked with the highlighted thing, sort of from the mobile world, and then we have here Slack being just 3 out of 5. So indicating progress, very important to make sure users know how long this experience is going to be. All right. Now, let's talk a little bit about the specific words to put into these nudges. And one is including a benefit here too. And this is a really good example, I find, because now you can use appointment schedules to create one booking page at no charge, stuff like that, which is great. But the most important thing is really, so anyone can easily schedule time. Imagine this was over, just now you can use appointment schedules. Okay, that's nice that it exists, but there's no reason for me to actually check this out, right? So yeah, I really like that, like this benefit statement here. And at the same time, we want to keep it brief. So at the same time, this is super straight to the point. From thumbnails to tag, you can now wrap objects to the next line auto layout. And you actually wouldn't want there to be too much of like, oh, if you use this feature, then actually you never have to worry about doing your layout manually again. This is going to save you so much time. That would be too wordy. So you need to sort of balance these two. And what I always say as a benchmark is, if it's a feature that you're sharing, then include a benefit. If it's a part of a feature, don't include it, but also you're all smart people. I'm sure you'll figure out what's more important in your specific situation. Very good here also is the learn more thing, where instead of stuffing this with text, they kept it to one sentence. And if you want to learn more, you can. Okay, CTAs are an important part because it's so easy to default to something like next or to done or whatever. But the best ones actually make sure that the user understands what happens when they click that button, because they lose trust if the thing that they expect to happen doesn't happen. So you can see something here, your 3D journey starts here, start, and then it says next, because that takes you to the next step. And these are super obvious things. It takes like 8 seconds to change this. But it's still important because it's these little things that really build the trust, because you've probably had this where you clicked the wrong button and something else opened in the same tab, and then you lost all your work. You need to do the whole thing again, and you don't want that experience. So you're wary of what does this button actually do. So these little things really matter. And you have Coda here as well, get started to launch the tour. You have Calendly at the end of the tour saying finish, which is also very good. So yeah, these are just a few ways to make your nudges really good from a UX writing and messaging perspective. And then let's figure out how to finish a tour. And the last step in a tour, we always advise to be some type of survey, some type of data collection. And there's two ways to do this. One is gathering data on the survey, on the sort of product tour itself, meaning, was this useful? Did you not need this, whatever? And then the other one is, how do you feel about the feature? Would you like to, do you expect to keep using this, and all that kind of stuff, right? So, and these are useful because the experience is very fresh. So the data is going to be better than if you 2 months from now email out some survey to 3,000 people. And it's a super useful way of gathering data before you need it. So if you ever want to kick off the work stream of, okay, let's figure out what's next for this specific feature, you have data to build on. You don't need to start building data. And yeah, that's it from me here. And right now, Joe is going to show you very, very specifically how to build this in CommandTalks and how to put all of this into practice from scratch, end to end, and all the principles behind how that works in CommandTalks. And if you have any questions in the meanwhile, feel free to ask them in the Q&A section. And yeah, that's it from me. Thank you.
All right, thank you, Finn. Hopefully you guys can all hear me. So thank you, Finn. Finn obviously has signed up for a lot of products here to give you all the examples. So he's been scouring the internet to find many different pop-ups. So thank you for putting that together for us, Finn. Just quick background, myself, I'm Joe Skipinski. I lead our go-to-market team here at CommandTalks. And today we'll walk through kind of an end-to-end experience of what it looks like to do all of these things in CommandTalks. So I'm going to take over screen share. There we go. All right. And this is obviously going to be a little bit more into our product. So feel free to ask questions throughout in the Q&A. We'll do some question Q&A after I get through these. And then maybe Finn and Christina can also do those in the meantime, but we'll make sure we have some time at the end here. So what is this, right? So this is kind of an idea of what I'm going to walk through today. So I kind of just want to walk you through kind of high level of what this will look like. So think about this as the kind of experience walkthrough, right? There's a couple of steps here. There is kind of our first step, right? And so this is like building the nudge, right? Think of this as like your CMS. You're putting in all of your information. What does it look like? What does the text look like? And a couple of different things that I'll walk you through, like a template library, making this very personalized, and then some of the integrations that we have. The second part, and I think this is kind of the bread and butter here, is the targeting. You want to make sure that it's like absolutely personalized and targeted to specific users, or even to a specific users based on a number of different factors. So we'll talk about things like intent and behavior, understanding, using some of the survey data that you have so that you can actually get in front of the user like you're talking to that user right from the screen. From there, we'll talk through testing, right? We want to do some A/B testing, making sure that's, maybe changing the copy, maybe changing the CTAs, really making sure that these are actually getting engaged. Analyzing, of course, so walk through just a quick example of that. And then talking about how we collect this information to continue to provide content, right? So as people are using other parts of CommandTalks, like searching for things, like providing survey responses, engagements, and then also dead ends, these are ways that you can continue to bring those back and actually use those within the product. So you can get super hyper personalized on targeting and making sure that you're actually getting engagements on all here. Cool. So let's walk through kind of an end-to-end experience here. So I'm going to start from just scratch here. I'm going to use HubSpot actually as an example here. Just everybody knows what HubSpot is, and I just kind of want to show you what that looks like. So on what you're seeing here is our admin dashboard. So essentially, this might be where all of you would sit and start with one of your nudges, right? This is where you kind of are creating these things. So let's start with an announcement here. What you're seeing here is our editor. You're going to click on new here. This is where you have a couple of templates that you can start from, but in this case, we're going to start from scratch. All right. So you can think of this as kind of like a CMS, right? So you can change, maybe the modal type. I'm going to keep it as modal, and this is where you can kind of start to add your content here. So maybe this looks like welcome back, right? This is talking to the user, talking to that specific user or specific user groups, right? So it feels hyper personalized there. And maybe in the context of like HubSpot, we're going to show something around campaigns, right? So I'm going to walk through maybe what is a campaign. Maybe you create a campaign, but you actually didn't launch it. So let's say we want to make sure that activation is key here. You came in, you created a campaign, but you never actually launched it. Obviously at HubSpot, the more campaigns that people are running, the more sticky the product is. So in this case, we might do something like, I don't know, it looks like your most recent. And then this is where we can get very hyper personalized and using some of that metadata. So we can do like user, maybe like inactive campaign. So this would then interpolate what is the inactive campaign name, or can interpolate a number, right? Whatever you're trying to look for. And then we can do like campaign isn't or hasn't been activated yet. Here's how to get started. Right, so simple enough first, right? But a lot of like specific elements here, right? One is your introducing, welcome back. You're understanding that this user has been here before. They have an inactive campaign. This is the campaign name. So it's speaking to them versus it just being kind of like, hey, check out campaigns, right? Because someone's already done something, it's talking to them and actually getting them to do what you want them to do, which is activate or launch the campaign in this case. Now, if you come back to here, we talked a little about library. We'll talk about kind of this like Chrome extension of what it actually looks like in HubSpot. The metadata here, right? That's where you kind of come in and provide something very specific to that user. And then let's talk about integrations, right? So your teams and you all have lots of great content that you've already created, but maybe you're not getting those in front of users or users aren't engaging in them. And so it's a great way to actually bring that content into here. So we have different integrations with help content, with video providers like YouTube and Looms and Vimeo. But for the purposes of this, I'm just going to put a video here. And I'm actually just going to go straight to YouTube, go to HubSpot, and find a video here. So maybe let's pull this video. Perfect, and throw that in. In practice, all of your videos would actually be in a dropdown, and all of your help documents or any kind of content would be in a dropdown. So you actually can select them from here. It's kind of like a one-time ad. It will sync with wherever your video provider is, wherever your content is. So you never have to actually leave. You just have all that there. It's great for teams that may be a little bit siloed away from the content teams. They can just grab all the videos, whatever they need to get going. So far, we've got that kind of like intent here, but what do we actually do now? Let's add maybe a CTA. So we're gonna add a button here, and we're gonna do something like launch campaign. Cool. So from here, this is kind of like that build phase, right? We built it, we use kind of all these different things. Now we actually want to do kind of that constant feedback loop. What is this actually going to look like within HubSpot? So I'm going to go ahead and save this. And then let's go to HubSpot. We can actually refresh the page here. Move some things around. All right, so this piece here on the right-hand side is what we call our kind of in-app studio. And so this exactly, you're right, it looks exactly like we show it in here, but this is meant to kind of have that constant feedback loop of what you're actually building. So we're going to go into here and we're going to be able to see it. I'm going to target this as immediately. We'll talk about targeting in a second here, but just to kind of preview, this is what it looks like. right? So make it really easy for you to understand, okay, this is exactly what I'm trying to do or not. And we'll talk about a little bit of this on kind of the next step here of like, is this targeting the right audience? Or am I on the right page? What's the trigger, right? Is it immediately happening? Is it based on some sort of like events? And also talk about that rate limiting, where we don't want to just bombard users. We want to make sure that we're providing nudges at the time where people actually will engage with them. And we don't want to like just send 100 nudges, right? We don't want every one of your teams like sending a nudge for their own purposes. So we want to make sure that we're rate limiting how many nudges people see. All right, so that's that. Let's go back to kind of this here, where we'll talk about targeting. So again, targeting is where kind of the bread and butter here of like really making sure that we're personalizing who we want this to send to, based on things that maybe you're providing, but also things that CommandBar is providing, so that you're hyper personalized. And again, making sure that people and users are actually engaging with this. So if we come back here, we're going to go over to the targeting here. So we have the concepts of audiences. Audiences is a cohort of users that you actually can create and recycle and use over and over and over again. So this is really great because different teams can create different audiences, marketing, product marketing, right? And this can be like a cohort of free users or paid users, enterprise users, admins, and then other different attributes that's kind of come into play. The where is where you actually want to do it. So pretty straightforward. That could be like on the marketing page, on the campaign page, whatever page you want to show it. And then the when is when to actually show this. So we'll talk about each one of these here. First one is the audience, right? So let's just create a custom audience here where we have different conditions. Again, once you create one of these, you actually can just recycle them. So don't think that you have to do this every single time for a nudge, but you can, right? You can use an audience and then maybe add one more condition just to continue to hyper personalize and create this kind of like one-time nudge that will be really effective. So we're gonna do a couple of things here. We're gonna kind of come down here at the ends and use some things that actually CommandBar is providing right out of the box. So this could be anything from an engagement with a help doc. So imagine your help docs are in here, you have all the docs, and you want to see people who may have engaged with anything that has to do with campaign. Right, so if they engage with campaigns, if they engage with docs that are related to campaigns or marketing, and they view them, they're more likely to probably want to do something related to campaigns. Similarly, you can do something around videos, right? So you can go and say, if someone has looked at a specific video, again, this is kind of just a blank account that I used today, so that's why you're not seeing anything. But this is where you can kind of get really tailored. If people are engaging with our content in some sort of way, why don't we target them? Because they have more intents based on what they're looking at. So I'm going to remove a couple of these just to continue to show a couple more examples. One thing that's really helpful is like also survey responses, right? If you do a survey and the survey is maybe asking like 1 to 10 or emojis or thumbs up or thumbs down, what people are doing, right? They will, you don't want to send a nudge where someone is like a 1 on NPS or doing a lot of like thumbs down for everything. You want to have maybe the mind-blowing people that you want to send this to so that you can either collect more feedback or you continue to provide and guide people who are kind of happy. So obviously a lot of different scenarios and use cases for this one. And then the last piece here that I wanted to call out today is our intent. And so this probably very new to you, right? What does intent mean? What does all these things mean? We talked about that. Finn talked about those today. And so if you think about CommandBar, we're not going to show this today, but we have other pieces like our copilots, our help hub, and our spotlights. And so this part of CommandBar is really to understand the user's intents. So imagine you let your users just talk to your software and they ask questions about how do I run campaigns? How do I do an email blast? How do I do all these things? And so this is where we actually capture that information and provide that, and you can just use that intent to say, okay, the cohorts of users who may have had a great response have also engaged with documents that are related to marketing. We want to target them, very personalized. The more intent that they have, the more likely they're going to engage with this content. And this is semantic, right? So if people are putting email blasts, if people are putting sequences, right, it doesn't matter, right? the idea is just that the intent is around campaigns, emails, so on and so forth. So you don't have to come in here and say like email blast and campaign, although obviously you can. We take care of that kind of semantic to making sure that we're hitting everybody that has some intent around building campaigns. All right, so once we're done with the audience or the kind of like who here, we're gonna go into where. This is pretty self-explanatory, like, right? So we're gonna move this one more time. Go back to campaigns, right? This can be as easy as if I'm on campaigns, I want to like, maybe do this URL, right? Whoops. So this could be, campaigns. Lots of different other ways to do this, but this is kind of just like one way. And then the when, this is where, again, you can do things like immediately. Obviously, we don't really suggest doing immediately because it's when you pop up on a session and it just pops in your face, not really the best. You can do things like after on time on page, or you can let command bar actually handle some of these things. So we're looking at the best time for a user to engage, whether it's a smart delay, whether it's on user confusion, on rage click. Obviously, based on the scenario, like what this nudge actually does, you're not going to show welcome back on a rage click. But there are times where you want to provide some sort of help, maybe guide them to your help center or thinking about command bar, our help hub. But for the purposes of this, maybe let's just do time on page. Let's just say like 5 seconds. All right, so we're going to go ahead and save there. So just to walk through a lot here. Obviously, targeting is very important. We went through audiences, some of these intent-based targeting, some survey data, some strike limiting, so based on what they're doing, and then some of those behavior triggers on rage click, on the smart delay, confusion, so on and so forth. Once we go ahead and publish, let's call this a name. Let's bring this like campaign activation. And then we can go into publish, right? Some of these things may be in the future, right? Some things you are doing maybe like as an event, marketing events, so you can always schedule these things, or obviously just go ahead and hit publish. All right, so now that we've published this, right, the next thing we want to do, if we go back to the slide, is test, right? So A/B testing is very straightforward in command bar. You kind of go back into the who here, and I'm just going to delete this just so you guys can see. Go back to the condition, and we can create an A/B test. So let's just call this like Joe's test. And what this does is it actually can put the groups into A or B, right? So this is like 50, 50, 50. It splits the entire audiences there, so you can understand the engagements and the impacts for each of these groups. So you obviously can do just a 50% where you're doing a holdout, or you actually can go ahead and duplicate this and have a B version of this, which can then maybe have maybe a change of the CTA, maybe a change of the copy, maybe change the contents, but obviously keeping the audience and the structure intact, so you can have a really good A/B test there. Cool. So once we're through step 3, we want to actually analyze these things. So I know today we're like really focused on kind of the building of knowledge and annoying, but I did want to flash like a little bit of our analytics here. We'll probably be doing another session like really around analytics and really understanding like what actually works and what doesn't. But I'll show you what our strikes dashboard looks like. I'm going to make this a little bit larger too. Again, this is a empty account, so this is just kind of demo data here. But what this is doing is actually showing you your strikes limits, right? So we want to make sure that you know which of your nudges are being dismissed kind of immediately, right? Our threshold is about 150 milliseconds, enough time for a user to like read the title, read the description, but not enough time for them to like hold on, right? So if people are just continuously dismissing them, yeah, there's obviously something's wrong with them. So this is where you can kind of go back and understand maybe we change something, maybe we change the audience, the targeting. And so this is kind of giving you what your average strike rate is across all of your nudges, right? So 12% is great. This is a feed of about 150 interactions that have gone through. So whether it's today or through a week. And then at the bottom here, really want to make sure that we're focusing on like those annoying nudges. So you can take a look at specifically what might be annoying about them. And again, continuing to come back and review, iterate, and continue to change targeting, content, so on and so forth. So that's our analyze here. There's a lot of different other dashboards that we have. We also integrate with different product analytics tools like heap, mix panel, amplitude, things like that. So these things can also be sent to those. And then the last piece, talked a lot about this in like the targeting, is kind of our data that we're generating, and we call this our user data model. So again, these are from like searches from other parts of command bar. This is our search and spotlights. These are the surveys that you're asking. So these are feedback surveys. These are MPS style, different types of Freeform. How are they engaging? Are they actually engaging with it? Are they going from step 1 to 2 to 3? Are they falling at step 2? And then looking at those dead ends, right? And this is more around like when people are searching for things and they actually don't get any results, right? People are searching for content around campaigns, but you have no content around campaigns. And so these are also places where you can continue to collect and use those for targeting and to making sure that you're continuing to provide the best experience. All right, so threw a lot at you, which is great. But I'm gonna stop sharing now, and we're actually gonna transition to our Q&A. Just give me 1 second here. All right, let's take a look here. Sorry, give me a second to read through these. Okay. So one of the questions here is, what do you see works better, intent or behavior? That's a great question. So I think it depends on the scenario, right? So intent can be related to things that people want to do or trying to do, right? This could be they have intent to complete something, or maybe it's their first time in this product, or they've had little sessions in the product, and they're trying to like do the job to be done, right? And that kind of aligns more with like the onboarding, the activation, where they have an intent, right? They like logged in, they want to know what this thing does. Does it actually solve the pain points that I'm looking for? And so that is a really great way to use intent, but also for users that are you're trying to kind of improve product adoption, where they're continuing to ask for things, but they don't know that it's available in your product. They may be using different words for it, right? This could be like, how does this thing do sequencing? I want to do a sequence, but you call it campaigns, and obviously those things may be easy to align together, but they might not be as easy to find in your product. And so those are great ways to kind of uncover what users want to do, and then guide them to where it is in your product and teach them about that. For behavior, and obviously those behavior and intent can be used together, but behavior, right? Some of the things that are command bar specific, like rage click, you obviously don't want to show something that's like helpful and guiding them to a new feature when they're rage clicking, or if they're confused on a specific page, right? You might want to show them something that is specific to give an overview of what that page is. Or if you want to go continue further than that, this is where you can kind of use command bar's help hub and copilot to kind of help them understand what this thing does, right? This can be, again, content. And so if a user is confused, you might want to show them like the most relevant content to that page, and really guide them to something that might be very high value to that page itself. Great question. Let's see. Okay, there's a question here. Yeah. How do you ensure that a brand new user is not seeing a nudge that is meant for a more veteran users? Example, not showing a feature release nudge to someone brand new. Great question. So there's a couple of ways to do this. One is we actually have things out of the box in command bar. We can say number of sessions they've been run around for. We can also do some like relative days. So maybe this person hasn't been around on this page in more than 30 days, 60 days. We could also do like, when did we first see this user versus when did we last see this user? So we have a lot of things that we bring out of the box. But a lot of times our customers also have this information in like one of their product analytics tools, or they have like this in their database, and you can pass that information to us and say, we only want to show this nudge to users who have been created in the last 30 days. Or have not had a number of, have had less than 5 sessions, or have never been on this page. So there's a lot of things that you can mix there, but there's definitely a lot of ways that you can do that out of the box with Command Bar, and then also bring your own data to be hyper specific. All right, cool. Let's see how, I guess this is kind of related. How do you add metadata? So metadata can be added again using a analytics tool or data, or using your own database. So we have an SDK method to do that, or we can connect. We have one-click integrations, no code, with a lot of the data providers like a segment, amplitude, mixed panel heap, so on and so forth. So it's pretty simple. One way or another, you kind of bring all that in, and then you can create those audience that can be recycled and you can use over and over again. So you can use like the free users that's, maybe going back to the last question, the free users that have been created in the last 3 days, who may have not like been on this page, like let's continue to add or use these kind of nudges to target them. Let's see what else we got. All right, there's a question here around, do you think the style of context-dependent product tour is a good option for onboarding brand users versus, say, a more curated linear process? I think it depends on what products you have. A lot of times, like your products, like it's kind of like 2 sets of products, right? There's products that you want users to spend as much time as possible in, and maybe that's a lot of your products today. Or there's a lot of products that you kind of want them to go in and out very quickly. So a great example of that is like a banking app or like an HR tool app, right? People just go in there to just do one job, whether that's like hiring an employee or like finding your accounts, finding your account number. And there's one that you want to spend, a lot of time on. And I think, really, I believe in both scenarios, right? Context dependence are really helpful, especially as a later user who maybe has used a feature for the first time or hasn't been there in a while. Maybe they log in once every 30 days or once every 60 days, and they've been a user for a while, but they haven't maybe used this feature. It is still great to like talk to the user because it feels like the product is actually wrapped around them, versus it just being a more general. Things that are more like event specific or marketing related, right? And these are like, you're doing a webinar or you're launching something. Those don't always have to be contextual, because I think users understand that that is more like a marketing related and content related. But when you're specifically trying to get a user to do something or showing them something that's related to what they're doing, I think context specific or dependence is really helpful, because it feels like the software understands what they're trying to do. And obviously we, as all people who use software every day, want to just do the thing that we want to do sometimes, or learn how this can solve my pain points. So providing something that's like relative to me makes me feel better as a user. It makes me feel like this thing is actually wanting to fix my problem versus it just showing something that's like company specific, right? What does the company want me to do versus like, what do I want to do? What do I want to actually accomplish in the software? All right, I think that's all the time that we have today, but I know there's a couple of other questions that are in here, and we will definitely follow up with you all to answer those questions. And obviously, you can always reach out to us if you have additional questions as you kind of think about this all. But I appreciate everybody jumping on today's webinar. As our first Command Talks, we'll continue to have a lot of these on a monthly basis. So hope to see you all on the future ones. And then kind of wrap back around, do check out our launch today of Shiplog. You can check that out on Command Bar. Thank you all. Hopefully talk to you soon. Bye.